The clock on the wall showed 11:47 p.m. when Lisa Rodriguez pushed her cleaning cart down the empty hallway of Skyline Aerospace. Her footsteps echoed softly against the polished floors as she made her way to the engineering department. 3 years, she had been walking these same halls night after night, invisible to the important people who worked here during the day. Lisa was 34 years old, with calloused hands and tired eyes that held more intelligence than anyone bothered to notice. She wore the standard blue uniform of the cleaning company, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her movements were efficient from years of routine. What the executives and engineers didn't know was that this quiet woman had once sat in lecture halls studying mechanical engineering, dreaming of designing the very machines that surrounded her now. Life had other plans, though. When her husband left 7 years ago, Lisa found herself alone with 2 young children and a mountain of bills. College became impossible when survival became the priority. She dropped out in her final year, trading textbooks for mop buckets, trading dreams for reality. But dreams don't just disappear. They hide, waiting for the right moment to resurface. Tonight felt different somehow. As Lisa unlocked the door to the main engineering lab, she could see lights still on in the corner office. Mr. David Chen, the CEO of Skyline Aerospace, was still there, which was unusual for this late hour. Through the glass wall, she could see him pacing back and forth, his phone pressed to his ear, his free hand running through his graying hair in obvious frustration. Lisa had seen Chen around the building many times, always in expensive suits, always surrounded by important-looking people with clipboards and serious expressions. He was the kind of person who looked right through her, not out of malice, but simply because their worlds never crossed. To him, she was part of the building's furniture, necessary but unremarkable. She began her cleaning routine, emptying trash, cans and wiping down surfaces, but she couldn't help overhearing pieces of Chen's heated conversation. The words, engine failure, vibration problem, and contract deadline drifted through the air. As someone who had once studied these exact systems, Lisa found herself inadvertently listening more closely. "I don't care what it takes, Peterson," Chen was saying into his phone, his voice carrying the weight of desperation. "We have until Monday morning to solve this, or we lose the biggest contract in company history. $2 billion is riding on this engine design, and you're telling me your entire team is stumped by a vibration issue?" Lisa continued cleaning, but her mind was racing. Vibration problems in jet engines were something she remembered studying extensively. The physics of rotating machinery had always fascinated her, the way different forces could interact to create problems that seemed impossible to solve. Chen's conversation continued, growing more heated with each passing minute. "What do you mean? The computer simulations show everything should work perfectly? Obviously something is wrong with either the simulations or the actual engine. We've spent 18 months on this project, and now you're telling me we might have to start over?" As Lisa moved closer to the conference table to empty the trash bin there, she caught sight of the technical drawings spread across the surface. Even upside down and partially covered by coffee cups and notebooks, she could make out the familiar lines and symbols of engine schematics. Her heart skipped a beat as she recognized the design configuration. It was a turbofan engine, similar to ones she had studied in her vibration analysis course years ago. Even from her limited view, something about the mounting system caught her attention. The way the engine was attached to the aircraft wing seemed to create what she remembered as a potential resonance problem. Chen ended his phone call and slammed the phone down on his desk. He sat heavily in his chair, his head in his hands, looking like a man carrying the weight of the world. Lisa had never seen such a powerful person look so defeated, so human. She tried to focus on her cleaning, but her eyes kept drifting back to those drawings. The more she looked, the more certain she became that she was seeing something important. Her old professor's voice echoed in her memory, talking about how harmonic frequencies could turn a perfectly good engine into a vibrating nightmare. "Excuse me," Chen's voice startled her. She looked up to find him standing just a few feet away, having walked out of his office without her noticing. Up close, he looked older than she'd thought, with deep lines around his eyes that spoke of too many late nights and too much stress. "Yes, sir?" Lisa replied, instinctively stepping back slightly. "How Long have you been working here? He asked, his tone not unkind but clearly curious about why he was even asking. 3 years, sir, she answered simply. Chen nodded absently, then something seemed to occur to him. You've been cleaning this department all that time? Yes, sir. Monday through Friday, same schedule. So you've seen all these projects come and go, he said, more to himself than to her. All these brilliant engineers with their advanced degrees, working on problems that sometimes seem impossible to solve. Lisa wasn't sure how to respond to that, so she remained quiet, waiting to see where this unusual conversation was heading. Chen walked over to the conference table and stared down at the drawings. This engine should work perfectly. Every calculation says it should work. Every computer model says it should work. But when we test it, it vibrates so badly it would shake an airplane apart. He looked up at Lisa with an expression that was half curiosity, half desperation. I don't suppose you have any idea what could cause something like that. The question hung in the air between them. Lisa felt her pulse quicken. This was the moment when she could either remain invisible, safe in her routine, or take a risk that could change everything. She thought about her children sleeping at home, about the bills on her kitchen table, about the dreams she had locked away 7 years ago. I might, she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. Chen's eyebrows rose in surprise. I'm sorry, what did you say? Lisa took a deep breath, knowing she was about to cross a line that she could never uncross. I said I might have an idea about what's causing the vibration problem. The CEO stared at her for a long moment, as if seeing her for the first time. You're a janitor, he said, not rudely, but stating what seemed to be an obvious fact. I am now, Lisa replied, her voice growing slightly stronger. But I used to study mechanical engineering. I was actually pretty good at it, especially vibration analysis. Chen's expression shifted from surprise to skepticism to something that might have been hope. You studied engineering? 3.5 years at State University. I had to drop out when... She paused, not wanting to share too much personal information. When life got complicated, the room fell silent except for the quiet hum of the air conditioning system. Chen looked at the drawings, then back at Lisa, then at the drawings again. She could practically see the thoughts racing through his mind, weighing the impossibility of the situation against the desperation of his circumstances. Show me, he said finally. Show me what you think you see. Lisa's hands trembled slightly as she approached the conference table, where the technical drawings were spread out like a complex puzzle. David Chen stepped back, giving her space while watching her every move with intense curiosity. The weight of the moment pressed down on her shoulders like a heavy blanket. May I? She asked, gesturing toward the papers. Chen nodded, his arms crossed as he studied this unexpected turn of events. Lisa leaned over the table, her cleaning supplies forgotten, and began examining the engine blueprints with eyes that hadn't looked at technical drawings in 7 years. But knowledge like this doesn't just disappear. It waits, buried under layers of daily survival, ready to resurface when needed. As she traced the lines with her finger, Lisa felt something awakening inside her, like a muscle that had been asleep for too long suddenly stretching back to life. The familiar symbols and measurements began making sense again, telling their story of forces and frequencies, of metal and motion. Here, she said, pointing to a specific section of the drawing. This mounting configuration. The way the engine is attached to the wing structure creates what we call a resonance pathway. Chen moved closer, squinting at the area she was indicating. Resonance pathway? What does that mean exactly? Lisa straightened up, realizing she was about to explain complex engineering concepts to one of the most successful businessmen in the aerospace industry. The irony wasn't lost on her, but she pushed through her nervousness. Think of it like a guitar string, she began, using the simplest analogy she could remember from her old textbook. When you pluck a guitar string, it vibrates at a specific frequency. But if you have 2 strings tuned to the same frequency, and you pluck one, the other will start vibrating too, even though you didn't touch it. Chen's expression shifted from skepticism to genuine interest. Go on. Your engine is like that first guitar string. When it runs, It creates vibrations. But the way it's mounted to the wing is like having a second guitar string tuned to almost the same frequency. Instead of the vibrations being absorbed or dampened, they're being amplified. The CEO walked around to the other side of the table, studying the drawings from a different angle. So, you're saying the problem isn't with the engine itself, but with how it's connected to the aircraft? Exactly, Lisa said, feeling more confident as she warmed to the subject. Your engineers probably designed a perfect engine. The computer models show it working because they're modeling the engine in isolation, but they might not have fully accounted for how the mounting system interacts with the wing structure under actual operating conditions. Chen was quiet for a long moment, processing what she had told him. Lisa could see the wheels turning in his mind, weighing this unexpected insight against months of work by his highly paid engineering team. You know, he said slowly, Dr. Peterson did mention that the vibrations seemed worse when they tested the engine mounted on the wing versus when they tested it on the ground-based test stand. Lisa nodded eagerly. That would make perfect sense. If there's a resonance issue with the mounting system. The room fell silent again, but this time it was a different kind of silence. Not the awkward quiet of earlier, but the thoughtful pause of a man facing an impossible decision. Chen walked over to the window that looked out over the company's testing facility, where the problematic engine sat waiting for Monday morning's final evaluation. Lisa, he said, turning back to face her. I'm going to tell you something that could destroy this company if word gets out. She felt her stomach tighten. Sir? We have until Monday morning to demonstrate that engine to representatives from global airlines. If we can't show them a working, vibration-free engine, we lose a $2 billion contract. More than that, we'll probably have to lay off half our workforce. The weight of what he was saying settled over Lisa like a cold fog. Hundreds of jobs, including her own, hung in the balance. Families depending on paychecks that might disappear. Children who might not have Christmas presents this year. Chen continued, his voice growing more intense. My engineering team has been working on this problem for 6 weeks. These are people with PhDs from MIT, Stanford, Caltech. They've run every test, tried every solution they can think of. And now you, someone who cleans their offices at night, thinks you see something they missed. Lisa felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment, but also with something else. Determination. I know how it sounds, Mr. Chen. I know exactly how crazy this must seem to you. It does sound crazy, he admitted. But you know what's even crazier? I'm desperate enough to listen. He walked back to the conference table and looked down at the drawings again. Here's what I'm thinking, and tell me if I'm completely losing my mind. What if I gave you access to this lab over the weekend? What if I let you really study these plans, maybe even look at the actual engine? Lisa's heart began racing. You mean you'd let me actually work on this? I'm thinking bigger than that, Chen said, his voice taking on the tone of a man making a decision that could either save his company or destroy his career. I'm thinking about giving you a real chance to prove whether your theory is right. He paused, seeming to gather his thoughts, then looked directly at her. Lisa, I'm going to make you an offer that will either change your life or embarrass both of us. The air in the room seemed to crackle with possibility and danger. Lisa found herself holding her breath. I'm going to give you complete access to this project over the weekend. All the technical specifications, all the test data, everything. I'm even going to authorize you to examine the actual engine if you think it would help. Lisa's mind reeled. Mr. Chen, I don't know what to say. Don't say anything yet because I'm not finished. His voice grew more serious. This is the deal. If you can identify the real cause of this vibration problem and propose a workable solution by Monday morning, I will personally ensure that you are rewarded in a way that will change your life forever. The promise hung in the air between them, shimmering with possibility. But, he continued, raising a finger, if you're wrong, if this is just wishful thinking, or if you waste our last weekend before the deadline, then we all go down together. The company fails. Everyone loses their jobs, and you'll have to live with knowing you had a chance to help and couldn't deliver. Lisa felt the weight of hundreds of livelihoods settling on her shoulders. Her own children's future, her co-workers' families, the dreams and hopes of everyone who worked at Skyline Aerospace, all balanced on her ability to solve a problem that had stumped some of the brightest minds in the industry. "I need you to understand something," Chen said, his voice gentler now. "I'm not doing this because I think you're definitely right. I'm doing this because my team is out of ideas, and sometimes fresh eyes see things that experienced eyes miss. Sometimes the person closest to the problem is the least likely to solve it." Lisa thought about her children sleeping at home, about the bills on her kitchen table, about the textbook she had sold 7 years ago when she needed grocery money. She thought about all the nights she had walked these halls, invisible and forgotten, dreaming of a chance to use her mind instead of just her hands. "I'll do it," she said quietly. Chen smiled for the first time that night. "I was hoping you'd say that." Saturday morning arrived with a gray sky that matched Lisa's nervous energy. She stood outside the Skyline Aerospace building at 6 a.m., clutching a thermos of coffee and a worn notebook she had dug out from a box in her closet. The notebook contained her old engineering notes from college, pages filled with formulas and diagrams that she hoped might still make sense after all these years. The security guard looked surprised to see her on a weekend, but Chen had left her name on the authorized list. As she walked through the empty halls, her footsteps echoed differently than they did during her usual night shifts. This time, she wasn't here to clean. She was here to solve a problem that could save the company. The engineering lab felt different in the daylight. Without the bustle of people in expensive suits rushing around with important documents, she could actually focus on the technical drawings spread across the conference table. Chen had been true to his word. Every specification, every test result, every computer simulation was laid out for her to examine. Lisa pulled up a chair and opened her old notebook. The first few pages made her smile sadly. There was her younger self's handwriting, full of hope and ambition, taking notes about harmonic analysis and structural dynamics. She had been so confident back then, so sure that she would graduate and design amazing machines that would change the world. But dwelling on the past wouldn't help now. She had a job to do. She started by reading through all the test reports from the past 6 weeks. The engineering team had tried everything they could think of. They had adjusted the engine timing, modified the fuel mixture, changed the blade, angles, even redesigned entire sections of the internal components. Nothing had worked. The vibration problem persisted no matter what they did. As Lisa read through page after page of technical data, a pattern began to emerge. The vibrations weren't random. They occurred at specific engine speeds, and they got worse under certain conditions. More importantly, the vibrations were always strongest when the engine was mounted on the wing, not when it was tested on the ground. By noon, Lisa had filled 3 pages of her notebook with calculations and observations. She was seeing the problem more clearly now, but she needed to understand the wing structure better. Chen had mentioned that she could examine the actual engine if needed, and she was beginning to think that might be necessary. She made her way down to the testing facility, a massive hangar where the problematic engine sat mounted on a section of aircraft wing. Seeing it in person was different from studying drawings. The engine was beautiful in its complexity, a masterpiece of modern engineering that represented thousands of hours of design work. Lisa walked around the engine slowly, studying how it connected to the wing structure. The mounting points were exactly where she expected them to be based on the drawings, but something about the actual installation bothered her. She pulled out a tape measure from the toolkit Chen had provided and began taking measurements. That's when she noticed it. A small discrepancy between the drawings and the actual installation. The mounting brackets were positioned slightly differently than the specifications showed. It was a tiny difference, maybe just a few millimeters, but in the world of vibration analysis, tiny differences could have huge consequences. Lisa sat down on a nearby stool and started calculating. If the mounting brackets were positioned differently than designed, it would change the natural frequency of the entire system. She worked through the math carefully, double-checking every calculation. Her old professor's voice echoed in her memory, reminding her that precision was everything in this kind of analysis. The sun was setting by the time she had her answer. The mounting brackets weren't just slightly misplaced. They were positioned at exactly the wrong spot to create a resonance problem. At certain engine speeds, the vibrations from the engine would match the natural frequency of the wing structure, causing both to vibrate together in a destructive pattern. But understanding the problem was only half the battle. She needed a solution. Lisa spent Saturday night at the kitchen table in her small apartment, surrounded by technical manuals she had borrowed from the library and pages of calculations. Her two children, Maya and Carlos, were curious about why Mom was suddenly doing homework again, but she explained that she was trying to solve a puzzle at work. "Is it a hard puzzle, Mom?" 8-year-old Maya asked, looking at the complicated diagrams. "Very hard, sweetheart," Lisa replied, rubbing her tired eyes. "But I think I might be able to figure it out." The breakthrough came at 3 a.m. Sunday morning, when exhaustion had stripped away all the complicated thinking and left only the essential truth. Lisa was staring at a diagram of sound waves when the solution hit her like lightning. The problem wasn't that the engine and wing were vibrating together. The problem was that they were vibrating in phase, meaning their vibrations were perfectly synchronized. But what if she could make them vibrate out of phase? What if she could create a situation where one vibration would cancel out the other? She had learned about this principle in her acoustics class years ago. It was called destructive interference, and it was the same principle used in noise-canceling headphones. If she could create a second vibration that was exactly opposite to the first, they would cancel each other out. But how could she do that with a massive jet engine? The answer came to her as she remembered a project from her senior year. Her professor had shown them how small chambers filled with air could be tuned to specific frequencies. These chambers, called Helmholtz resonators, could absorb sound waves at precise frequencies. What if she could design a series of small chambers that would be tuned to absorb the problematic vibrations? They could be built into the mounting system itself, creating a vibration-canceling effect right where the problem was occurring. Lisa worked through the calculations frantically, her excitement growing with each successful computation. The math was working out perfectly. She could create a series of small chambers, each tuned to a specific frequency, that would absorb the vibrations before they could build up into a destructive resonance. The best part was that her solution wouldn't require rebuilding the engine or redesigning the wing. The chambers could be retrofitted into the existing mounting system with minimal modifications. It was elegant, cost-effective, and theoretically sound. By Sunday evening, Lisa had a complete solution worked out on paper. She had identified the exact cause of the vibration problem and designed a fix that could be implemented quickly and cheaply. But now came the hardest part of all, convincing a room full of experts that a janitor had solved a problem they couldn't. She looked at her reflection in her bathroom mirror, seeing tired eyes and messy hair, but also something else. For the first time in 7 years, she saw the confident engineering student she used to be. That person had never really gone away. She had just been waiting for the right moment to reappear. Tomorrow morning, Lisa would walk into that conference room and present her solution to people who had every reason to doubt her. But tonight, she allowed herself to feel something she hadn't felt in years: the satisfaction of solving a complex problem through careful analysis and creative thinking. She was ready to change her life. Monday morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air that makes everything feel more intense. Lisa stood in the parking lot of Skyline Aerospace at 7:30 a.m., clutching a folder containing her weekend's work. Her hands were shaking, not from the cold, but from the weight of what was about to happen. She had barely slept the night before, running through her presentation over and over in her mind. How do you explain complex engineering concepts to people who already think they know everything? How do you convince experts that someone they've never taken seriously might have the answer they've been desperately searching for? Lisa took a deep breath and walked through the front doors. The lobby was buzzing with unusual activity for a Monday morning. She could see people in expensive suits, the airline representatives Chen had mentioned. Their presence made everything more real, more urgent. This wasn't just about solving an engineering problem anymore. It was about saving the company. Chen appeared at her side as she approached the elevators. "Ready for this?" he asked, though his own face showed the strain of a man who had bet everything on a long shot. As ready as I'll ever be, Lisa replied, surprising herself with how steady her voice sounded. The elevator ride to the conference room felt like it lasted forever. When the doors opened, Lisa saw a sight that made her stomach drop. The room was packed, not just with the engineering team she had expected, but with what looked like half the company's leadership. She recognized faces from the corporate website: the chief technology officer, the head of engineering, several department directors, and sitting at the far end of the table, 3 stern-looking people in dark suits who could only be the airline representatives. All eyes turned to her as she entered the room. Lisa could practically hear the thoughts running through their minds. Why was the janitor here? What kind of desperate stunt was Chen trying to pull? Dr. Patricia Wong, the head of engineering, looked particularly skeptical. Lisa had seen her around the building many times, a brilliant woman with degrees from 3 different universities and patents on a dozen different engine technologies. She was exactly the kind of person who had every right to question what was happening. "Ladies and gentlemen," Chen began, his voice carrying the authority of someone who knew he was taking the biggest risk of his career. "I want to introduce you to Lisa Rodriguez. Over the weekend, she has been examining our vibration problem from a fresh perspective." The murmurs around the room were polite but clearly doubtful. Lisa could see people exchanging glances, trying to figure out what Chen was thinking. "Lisa," Chen continued, "would you please share what you discovered?" This was it. The moment that would either validate everything she had worked for over the weekend or expose her as someone who had gotten in way over her head. Lisa walked to the front of the room, her folder feeling heavier with each step. She looked out at the faces staring back at her. Some curious, some skeptical, some clearly annoyed that their time was being wasted. But in the back of the room, she spotted something that gave her courage. A small group of people she recognized from the night cleaning crew. Word had gotten out somehow, and her co-workers had found a way to watch this moment. "Thank you. Mr. Chen," she began, her voice stronger than she felt inside. "I know this situation is unusual, and I appreciate everyone's patience while I explain what I found." She opened her folder and pulled out the first diagram. "For the past 6 weeks, your team has been trying to solve a vibration problem by modifying the engine itself. You've adjusted timing, changed components, even redesigned entire sections. But the problem isn't with the engine." Dr. Wong leaned forward slightly, her expression shifting from skepticism to attention. "The problem," Lisa continued, "is with how the engine talks to the wing." She moved to the whiteboard and began drawing a simple diagram. When this engine runs at certain speeds, it creates vibrations. Those vibrations travel through the mounting system into the wing structure. Now, normally, the wing would absorb those vibrations or scatter them harmlessly. But in this case, something different is happening. One of the senior engineers, a man Lisa recognized as Dr. James Kim, spoke up. "We've analyzed the mounting system extensively. The computer models show no problems with the interface." "The computer models are based on the original design specifications," Lisa replied calmly. "But when I measured the actual installation, I found something interesting." She pulled out her measurements from Saturday. The mounting brackets are positioned 4.7 millimeters off from where the drawings show they should be. It's a small difference, but it's enough to change the resonance frequency of the entire system. The room grew quieter. Several engineers were now taking notes. At 3,400 RPM and again at 5,200 RPM, the engine's vibrations match the natural frequency of the wing structure. Instead of the vibrations being dampened, they're being amplified. The engine and wing are vibrating together, creating the problem you've been experiencing. Dr. Wong stood up and walked closer to the whiteboard. "Show me the calculations." Lisa had been hoping for this moment. She pulled out her notebook and began walking through the math, explaining each step in terms that everyone could follow. As she worked through the resonance frequency calculations, she could see expressions around the room beginning to change. "This is actually elegant work," Dr. Wong said quietly, studying the equations. "The approach is different from what we tried, but the physics is solid. But identifying the problem is only half the solution," said Dr. Kim. "How do you propose to fix it?" This was the moment Lisa had been building toward all weekend. "We can't easily move the mounting brackets without a complete redesign, but we don't need to. Instead, we can use the resonance effect to our advantage." She moved to a fresh section of the whiteboard. "What if, instead of trying to prevent the vibrations, we create a second set of vibrations that cancel out the first ones?" She began drawing her chamber design. These are called Helmholtz resonators. They're small chambers that can be tuned to absorb specific frequencies. By installing a series of these chambers in the mounting system, we can create destructive interference that eliminates the problematic vibrations. The airline representative in the middle, a woman who had been silent until now, finally spoke. "How long would this modification take to implement?" Lisa looked at Chen, then back at the room. "The chambers can be machined and installed in less than a week. We're not rebuilding anything, just adding components to the existing system." Dr. Wong was now studying Lisa's designs intently. "The theoretical basis is sound," she admitted, "but we'd need to test this before we could recommend it." "Then let's test it," Chen said, speaking for the first time since Lisa had begun her presentation. "We have the resources, we have the time, and we have nothing to lose." The room erupted in discussion as engineers began debating the merits of Lisa's proposal. But through the chaos, Lisa could see something happening that filled her with hope. The people who had spent weeks failing to solve this problem were now energized, excited about a new possibility. Dr. Wong approached her as the formal meeting broke up. "Where did you study engineering?" she asked. "State University," Lisa replied. "Though I never finished my degree." Dr. Wong smiled, the first genuine smile Lisa had seen from anyone in management. "Well, you just gave us our best lead in 6 weeks. I think we should get you back in school." The next 3 days felt like a whirlwind dream that Lisa kept expecting to wake up from. Instead of cleaning offices at night, she found herself working alongside the engineering team during the day, helping them build and install her resonator chambers. Dr. Wong had insisted that Lisa be involved in every step of the implementation, saying that the person who designed the solution should see it through. Lisa's hands, so accustomed to holding mop handles and cleaning supplies, now gripped precision tools and measuring instruments. The muscle memory of her college years slowly returned as she worked with the engineers to machine the small chambers that would hopefully solve their massive problem. Maya and Carlos couldn't understand why their mom was suddenly coming home during regular hours, tired but excited in a way they hadn't seen before. "Are you still a cleaner, Mom?" Carlos asked over dinner Tuesday night. "I'm still me, sweetheart," Lisa replied, though she wasn't entirely sure what that meant anymore. "But I might be getting a chance to do something different at work." By Wednesday afternoon, the modifications were complete. The resonator chambers had been installed in the engine mounting system, each one precisely tuned to absorb the specific frequencies that had been causing the vibration problem. The entire engineering team gathered in the testing facility, along with Chen and the airline representatives who had agreed to stay an extra few days to see the results. Lisa stood next to Dr. Wong as they prepared to fire up the engine. Her heart was pounding so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. Everything she had calculated, everything she had theorized, was about to be put to the ultimate test. If she was wrong, the vibrations would still be there, and the company would lose its biggest contract. If she was right, well, she couldn't quite let herself imagine what that might mean. "Ready?" called out the test engineer from the control booth. Chen looked at Lisa. "This is your moment," he said quietly. "Whatever happens, you should be proud of the work you've done." The engine started with a low rumble that gradually built to a powerful roar. Lisa watched the monitoring equipment, her eyes fixed on the vibration readings. At 1,000 RPM, everything looked normal. At 2,000 RPM, still smooth. As the engine speed approached 3,000 to 400 RPM, the point where the worst vibrations had always occurred, Lisa held her breath. The numbers on the screen remained steady. Where there had once been violent shaking, there was now just the smooth operation of a perfectly balanced engine. "Impossible," whispered Dr. Kim, staring at the readouts. "The vibrations are completely gone. They tested every problematic RPM range, 3,400, 5,200, 6,800. Every speed that had previously caused problems now showed perfectly normal vibration levels. Lisa's solution had worked flawlessly. The lead airline representative, a woman named Catherine Morrison, smiled for the first time since arriving. "Mr. Chen, I think we have our engine." The testing facility erupted in cheers and applause. Lisa found herself surrounded by engineers and executives congratulating her, but the whole scene felt surreal, like watching someone else's life unfold. Chen approached her as the celebration continued around them. "Lisa, we need to talk." They walked to his office, leaving the noise behind. Chen closed the door and gestured for her to sit down. "Do you remember what I promised you if you solved this problem?" Lisa nodded, though she had been so focused on the technical challenge that she hadn't really thought about what success might bring. "I said I would ensure you were rewarded in a way that would change your life," Chen continued. "I've been thinking about what that means, and I want to make you an offer." He leaned forward in his chair. "First, Skyline Aerospace is going to pay for you to complete your engineering degree. Full tuition, books, everything. You can attend classes during the day and work for us part-time as a paid engineering consultant." Lisa's mouth fell open. "Mr. Chen, I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything yet because I'm not finished." His smile widened. "While you're completing your degree, you'll be working directly with Dr. Wong's team on advanced projects. Real engineering work, not just consulting. And when you graduate, you'll have a permanent position waiting for you as a senior engineer." The offer was so far beyond anything Lisa had imagined that she struggled to process it. "But sir, I'm just a janitor who got lucky." "No," Chen said firmly. "You're an engineer who was working as a janitor because life forced you into it. There's a difference, and this company should have recognized your potential years ago." Over the following weeks, news of Lisa's breakthrough spread throughout the aerospace industry. Trade magazines wrote articles about the janitor who saved a billion-dollar project. But more importantly, her story started conversations about how many talented people might be overlooked simply because of their current circumstances. Lisa's first day back in college was terrifying and exhilarating. At 34, she was older than most of her classmates, but her real-world experience gave her insights that her professors found valuable. The theoretical concepts she was learning connected directly to the practical problems she was solving at Skyline. Dr. Wong became not just her supervisor, but her mentor. "You approach problems differently than most engineers," she told Lisa one afternoon as they worked on a new turbine design. "You see the whole system, not just individual components. That's a rare gift." The resonator solution that Lisa had developed became industry standard within 2 years. Other aerospace companies started licensing the technology, creating a new revenue stream for Skyline that more than paid for Lisa's education and salary. Maya and Carlos adapted to their mother's new schedule with the resilience that children always seem to have. They were proud to tell their friends that their mom was an engineer, though they sometimes missed the quiet evenings when she would help them with homework at the kitchen table, surrounded by her own textbooks. 3 years later, Lisa walked across the stage to receive her bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering. In the audience, Chen and Dr. Wong applauded alongside her children, who barely remembered a time when their mother cleaned offices for a living. But perhaps the most meaningful moment came 6 months after graduation, when Lisa was promoted to lead engineer for vibration analysis. Her first major assignment was to create a mentorship program for non-traditional engineering students, people who, like her, had taken unconventional paths to their careers. The program became a model for other companies, helping hundreds of people transition from jobs that paid the bills to careers that used their minds. Lisa often told her mentees the same thing Dr. Wong had once told her. Talent doesn't care about your job title. It only cares about being given a chance to shine. Standing in her own engineering lab 5 years after that late Friday night when she first looked at those engine drawings, Lisa sometimes thought about how different her life might have been if Chen hadn't been working late that evening, or if she hadn't had the courage to speak up when she saw something familiar in those technical drawings. But mostly, She focused on the future, on the problems waiting to be solved, the students waiting to be mentored, and the proof that sometimes the most important discoveries come from the most unexpected places. Her story had become bigger than just one person's success. It had become evidence that brilliance can be found anywhere, if only we're willing to look.